Biden did return to pardon 2 turkeys at the White House this week. He had to pardon them because they were part of the FBI team that raided Mar-a-Lago, and Biden was worried Trump would go after them. What do you call a top secret recipe for cooking a turkey? Classified.
Oh, my God. Are we doing dad jokes now on late night TV? Classified? Oh, dear God, that's painful. It is Friday after Thanksgiving. Black Friday to some people. Johnny Walker Black Friday to others. Black Velvet people. I don't know. It's Friday. Friday-luya to you. Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on the Chris Plant Show. You know, we've forgotten about the Biden turkey pardon. I think we had a moment there. Joe Biden pardoned the 2 turkeys, Peach and Blossom, on the White House lawn. And when he pardoned Peach, there was something said that I believe should have triggered an immediate call for Amendment 25, 25th Amendment action to remove the president. Joe Biden pardoning Peach, the turkey.
Delaware has a long history of growing peaches. In fact, the peach pie in our state is one of my favorites. It's a state dessert. Peach weighs 41 pounds and loves to eat hot dish and tater tots and cross-country skis.
What? Now, does the turkey eat hot dish, tater tot, and also eat cross-country skis? Or are we meant to believe the turkey is a cross-country skier? Either way, I know it's a failed attempt at comedy, is what you're telling me. But that, in my opinion, that should have immediately triggered a 25th Amendment action against Joe Biden to remove him. And the only reason it did not is the very next day, literally the very next day, Kamala Harris and the DNC released this.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
Let me tell you something, mister. You use power. Don't you ever forget it. I can smell the alcohol from here. And somebody's saying, how dare you? How dare you? Meghan McCain said, how dare you? Take this down. She reposted it. That clip combined with the turkey clip made me nervous for my country because there's still like 52 days left until we say goodbye to the Biden-Harris administration. And hello, we've missed you, to Trump 2.0. And while we do have the substantial victory, the substantial electoral victory, the popular vote victory, the Senate victory, there is concern over the House majority, which California counting votes for 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks. It looks like we're finally down to the final numbers here. And it's not good. The majority is so slim. Harry Enton over at CNN, their numbers guy, although I'm beginning to wonder about his credibility as a journalist. He was wearing a turkey costume all day yesterday on air. Either he lost a bet or he's going to turn in his credibility card. But he was talking about the very slim majority in the House.
My goodness gracious. Yes, the Republicans are going to control the House of Representatives. But if all the current results hold up, we're looking at a record small majority after the Novembers in the last 90 years. You have to go all the way back since the Herbert Hoover administration to find an even smaller majority after the November elections. We're talking about the Republicans with 220 seats, Democrats with 215 if the current House results hold. And keep in mind that this will drop lower if Stefanik Waltz or others like Matt Gaetz leave the Congress.
You talk to me. This is sort of the best case scenario for Republicans, at least for the next few weeks or months. Where could it go?
Where could it go? It could shrink even further. So let's say Gaetz, Stefanik, and Waltz resigns. we could be looking at, get this, Republicans at 217, the Democrats at 215, and I went all the way back. Look, this is crazy. This is crazy, right? Because all it means is Democrats at 215 plus one GOP seat could tank the entire thing, because then both sides would be at 216 seats, John.
Yeah, he did the math on it for us, and he's right. It's such a tiny majority now. Stefanik and Gates and Walsh all leaving, and how long will it take to replace them? I don't know the complete machinations about that. But that is troubling, because it means any one individual in the Republican caucus who leaves the fold could endanger the agenda. I know it's troubling. I'm just bothered by California and the fact that they took all this time to count all these votes. And I hope somebody looks into it. I would hope Florida would teach California how to count votes. They got it done pretty darn quickly. A lot of states did. Florida seems to be the best example. The phone number, of course, here at the Chris Blanch Show, 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. Eduardo is in Tampa, Florida. Hello, Eduardo. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, before I get to my China story here, they need to do an investigation of California, because Gavin Newsom sticks his smiling face out so it appears like everything's so normal because it took so long to count. It's pretty ridiculous. They need to do an investigation. But moving on quickly to the China thing. So now the Chinese government is using these non-military ships or personnel, whatever you want to call it, to do the dirty work for the military. They're the ones that cut those cables in the Baltic Sea. So that way it appears like it was accidental, which it was not. It was intentional. So I think we should return the favor. It's almost like in baseball when you do a brushback pitch from the pitcher to the batter. It's almost the same thing. I think we need to do that to China.
Well, you're bringing up a topic that's kind of slid off the headlines, and that is the fact that there was a major cable that went through the Baltic Sea that served a lot of Europe. And suddenly it was snapped, and based on every credible investigation I've seen, it was a Chinese ship not flagged as a military ship, but isn't every ship that's coming out of China basically part of the Chinese Communist Party? They dragged an anchor across the floor of the sea and ripped this cable. And they're saying it's an accident, oopsie, but it's obvious to most people it's not an oopsie. It's a, hey, we could do this anytime we want. And this coincides with a lot of the thinking that's been offered by Gordon Chang, who I think is just one of the best analysts on the region, when he talks about how many tens of thousands of young Chinese men who crossed into the country over the past 4 years through our very porous border. China is not our friend. China has been building a massive military, predominantly a navy, and we don't really know how many ships they have, especially how many submarines they have. And so I think it would be wise for us to maintain the strong posture. And I do believe Donald Trump's going to do that. Now, Joe Biden's gotten some credit, actually, in his administration for not lifting the Trump tariffs on China. And all of the left is, they're anti-tariff, anti-tariff, anti-tariff. But the administration kept in place basically all the tariffs that Trump had put in place. And now Mr. Trump is threatening more. So you're wise to keep your eyes on China. They're not going to play by the rules because they don't have to. And they certainly don't want to be our friends. They want to be our bosses. But that's a great observation, Eduardo. Thank you, sir. And there he goes. Yeah, the whole China thing has been left a little bit on the sidelines for this and pretty much this entire administration. But I do believe Donald Trump understands tariffs and the power of tariffs. And all we have to do is go back to 1990 when Donald Trump was businessman Donald Trump, when Donald Trump was man about town in New York, and people were kind of hinting to him that he has a better idea on the global economy than anyone else. And he talked about the trade imbalance between America and the rest of the world, China, too.
They are ripping us like we've never been ripped before. If you look at Japan, if you look at China, where we lose $100 billion a year with China, and they do nothing to help us with potentially our biggest problem of all, and that's going to be North Korea. So I would start right at that point.
1990, Donald Trump identified the problems that he'd be dealing with as president decades later. One of Donald Trump's best advocates in the House of Representatives is Florida Representative Byron Donalds, a guy I think is one of the future leaders of the GOP. Byron Donalds was talking about the tariffs because the left keeps saying, and specifically we're seeing it pour across CNN and MSNBC, these tariffs are going to kill the American consumer. And when nobody bid on that for the first couple of days, they've now shifted to say these tariffs are going to destroy the American automobile industry. What you have to understand is the only way the tariffs have any effect is if the border doesn't close or if the fentanyl keeps coming. But Byron Donalds is very pro-tariff. He's very positive about Donald Trump's take on tariffs.
It's going to be incredibly effective because the Mexican government knows that Donald Trump's not playing around. He wants this border secured. He wants the drug cartels to stop this infestation of people going into the United States through our southern border. You see the caravan that's already forming. It's going to be very effective because we got to secure our border. Donald Trump's going to do that, period.
Period. And we're starting to see the effects of that now. Over the last couple of days, Mr. Trump has put out posts on Truth Social saying that the Mexican president has said that she is looking at closing the border. And the Mexican president has said something different. And the media has always supported anybody who says anything different than Donald Trump. So they've supported whatever the Mexican president said. I say wait and see. It's certainly going to affect Mexico more if Donald Trump starts imposing tariffs on them. It's going to be a big stinking deal. And I would say keep your eyes on that. One of the other stories that I thought was fascinating over the last couple of days, in addition to the cabinet picks we already understand, the people we already know are going to be likely additions to the Donald Trump second term, one of those who has popped up that I think would be a good sidekick to Robert Kennedy, RFK Jr., is Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan talking about a position inside the Trump administration. In what role? What role for Hulk Hogan? Of course it has something to do with health.
My president said, you know something, Hogan? You'd be great to run the President's Council on Physical Fitness because you're 71. You still got that Trump pump on, brother, and it'd be great if you got all the kids in America in shape.
Now, I'd be all for the administration incentivizing getting kids in shape again. And we certainly know Robert Kennedy is all about making America healthy again. But can you imagine Kennedy and Hogan together leading the return to fitness for America? And maybe we get kids running, jumping, and getting off the couch. It's a good thing. Be a good thing for America. Hulk Hogan is part of the cabinet. Boy, that would make the left freak out, wouldn't it? All right, you're welcome to weigh in on this. 888-630-9625. 888-630-9625. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on this Friday on The Chris Plant Show.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris.
It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka sitting in for my friend Chris Plant and trying to keep an eye on everything that's happening as it seems like little stories are popping up here and there. One of the most interesting stories of the week has been the autopsy that Democrats are doing on their loss. And to see the different statements coming out of the leaders of the Biden, of the Harris campaign are fascinating to me. David Plouffe, who's certainly been around Democrat politics for a long, long time, a big insider with the Clintons, tight with just about everybody at the top. And he's one of the people who talked about the problems with the campaign and that Donald Trump and his ad pointing out the transgender surgeries for prisoners, that they didn't think that was as effective as most of us thought it was. Pluff thinks it really was inconsequential, and I think he's wrong here.
Obviously, it was a very effective ad at the end. I ultimately don't believe that it was about the issue of trans. I think that it made her seem out of touch, and it was sort of a pseudo-economic ad underneath it.
Well, at the end of the day, we were spending a lot of time with voters in these battleground states, both quantitatively and quantitatively, and this trans ad was not driving vote.
Oh, I think it was. I think you totally missed it. The working people are repulsed at the thought of their tax dollars going to pay for gender transition surgeries for men in prison for any crime. It's just not right when you have Americans who are homeless, veterans who are homeless, people who are trying to find a good job or a good house. You guys are clueless. And speaking of clueless, Jen O'Malley Dillon, one of the bigwigs inside the Harris campaign, talking about why there was no Joe Rogan interview. You know, we were told a lot of different things. She seems to have come up with a new answer.
We wanted to do it. We tried to get a date to make it work, and ultimately we just weren't able to find a date. We did go to Houston, and she gave a great speech at an amazing event. We were hoping to be able to fit it in around that, and ultimately weren't able to do it. As it turns out, that was the day that Trump was taping his Joe Rogan, which they had never confirmed to us. We kind of figured that out in the lead up to it.
Well, Joe Rogan seems to have told the world that your people wanted it to be only an hour, and you're putting restrictions on it, some pretty tough ones. And you didn't want any discussion of your pot convictions that Kamala had. My favorite breakdown on this was James Carville, who I think called this election a long time ago when he called out the Dems for their toxic attack on masculinity.
The vice president was thinking about going on Joe Rogan's show, and a lot of the younger progressive staffers pitched a hissy fit. If I were running a 2028 campaign and I had some little snot-nosed 23-year-old saying, I'm going to resign if you don't do this, not only would I fire that motherfucker on the spot, I would find out who hired them and fire that person on the spot. These people who had to lose the election because of the stupidity.
And he did call them out for paying attention to the wokeness months and months and months ago. But they wrote him off because he's old. It's really fun for me, and I'm sure for many of you, to watch the circular firing squad that the Democrats have assembled as they try and do the autopsy on their loss of the White House. And they're now looking ahead to 2028. Kamala still leads everybody at 37%, but she's only ahead of, I have no idea who I would vote for, at 36%. It's Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is The Chris Plant Show, at least for another 25 minutes or so. Mike Opelka sitting in for my friend Chris Plant. You want to join us? 888-630-9625. Jasmine is on the phones today. Be kind. Michael Piercy guiding me through all of this. So many things I want to try and get to today. I, for one, enjoyed yesterday's day of football, riding the couch, just hanging out with my wife and being thankful for everything. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. And I enjoyed the mass arrest of all of the protesters at the Macy's Day Parade. All of the people who sat down in the street as the Ronald McDonald balloon was about to make its way down the avenue. A bunch of protesters, Free Palestine, decided they'd get out there in the rain. They all got arrested. Good for them. And Mickey D's got a whole bunch of press for it because Ronald McDonald was on screen the entire time. It was very interesting. Very, very interesting. And the networks have started trying to cover other parades. Now, Macy's has been around for 94 years. The Philadelphia parade has been around longer, Philadelphia was the first Thanksgiving parade in the country. It's nowhere near the size of the New York parade, but they should be given some love for being the first one. But I thought it was weird. CNN was bouncing between New York, Philly, Houston, Atlanta, and Chicago. And New York is bigger than all the others combined. So I really think those other cities, you should give it up. I mean, it's not even close. And you got a couple of lame balloons compared to the massive balloons in New York City. I'm just throwing that out there as a personal opinion. If you want to have your national or your civic pride of your local city, good for you. Speaking of local, CNN's Casey Hunt was stunned when Denver's mayor, Mike Johnson, was responded to by Tom Homan. This mayor who has said he is going to stand in the way of federal authorities that want to evict the criminals who are here in this country illegally. And he's made a big stinking deal of it. I think he's poll testing this. Maybe he's going to make a run at governor in the near future. But Mayor Mike Johnson, and he's talking about how he would happily go to jail for this because he believes in the immigrants more than he believes in the American citizens, apparently. And I like putting Johnson up against Homan, toe-to-toe, because I'm betting on Tom Homan in this fight.
I think we will see Denverites and folks around the country who will nonviolently resist that.
Me and the Denver mayor, we agree on one thing. He's willing to go to jail. I'm willing to put him in jail.
Boom. And at that point, Casey Hunt rolled her eyes so far back into her head she saw her brain. And I just cannot wait for the swearing in of Tom Homan after the swearing in of Donald Trump and to see if these mayors will stand up to their words and their promises, even facing being locked up. Because you're not allowed to interfere with a federal official, especially if it's a big stinking law. We talked earlier about the tariffs, and one of the people I respect his opinion, he's done quite well in the business world, is Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary. He was opining on the Donald Trump proposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico on Fox and Friends the other morning, and I think he brings great clarity here.
The challenge with the Canadian situation is different than the Mexican. Trudeau is a really unpopular leader, and in the parliamentary system, he'll be getting whacked soon. It's the end game in the parliamentary system is so brutal. Look what happened in England just recently. Yeah. It's about to happen to him. So that Trump will not be negotiating with Trudeau. He'll be dealing with a guy named Pierre Poilievre who will get majority mandate. I think Trump should invite him down to Mar-a-Lago now. I don't know what the protocol and all that is, but he'll be dealing with Pierre. He might as well.
He was much more ideologically aligned with Trump.
Well, here's what Poilievre has already said. I'm going to lift the ban on pipelines. I'm going to kill the carbon tax to be competitive with Texas. And I'm going to open all kinds of investment in Canada. That's Trump's kind of guy. So I know he talked to Trudeau last night, but Trudeau is checking out of Dodge.
Now, Kevin O'Leary talking about Trudeau about to get whacked. I didn't realize the Sopranos lingo had worked its way into what's going to happen potentially in Canada. But Poilievre or whatever, this new conservative potential leader of Canada, I don't think he's going to welcome New York and Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire in Liz Kruger's bid to get them to be folded into Canada. I think if Canada is smart, they will move Poilievre into their system as the leader, their prime minister, and he will open up those pipelines again. Now, Donald Trump is hoping to get the energy independence back in America, which would lower the costs on everything. If you get energy down again, if we start becoming a world energy provider instead of a purchaser of energy from the rest of the world, suddenly everything becomes cheaper in the country. Gas for your car becomes cheaper, diesel is cheaper, and the cost to transport everything becomes cheaper. And that's how you battle with the inflation. I think Donald Trump has that at the center of his plan. We talked to KT McFarland about that at length to see if that's the case. And also the other The other situation that's being affected by Donald Trump's plans to become energy independent will be tamping down the Iranians who have benefited from the Biden plans and the Biden administration's stranglehold on American energy. Iran has been making money hand over fist selling its oil. And if American oil is out there, we can undercut them and essentially cut their legs out from under them. At the same time, Iran has realized they're going to be weakened under Donald Trump, and they're not going to be able to spread their terror as much as they have been in the last 3 years. And so this piece in the New York Times today is really kind of encouraging. With Trump returning, this is the headline. With Trump returning and Hezbollah weakened, Iran strikes a conciliatory tone. Iran is facing domestic and foreign challenges. It's always got domestic challenges. And now it's saying that it's maybe thinking twice about attacking Israel. There is reporting by the New York Times that in the middle of this month, they dispatched top officials to Beirut to urge Hezbollah to accept the ceasefire with Israel. Now, that finally happened this week. It currently is holding. We'll see if it goes further. Donald Trump is not even in office. And he appears to have gotten concessions on the border from Canada's leader. And there are some questions as to whether or not he's getting concessions on the border from Mexico's leader. He has China's attention when it comes to the trafficking of fentanyl into the country. And now it appears as if Donald Trump and his impending return have gotten Iran to think twice about stirring up trouble in the Middle East. The guy's not even sworn. He's got 52 days, 51 days until Inauguration Day. This is a very good sign that the Trump plan can happen, but he's got to be allowed to push his plans forward. And he's also got to be able to get there. There is news today, the National Pulse is reporting, an Arizona man is facing some serious charges for threatening Donald Trump and his family. A guy named Manuel Tamayo Torres has been detained following accusations that he was threatening to kill Donald Trump and his family. And he's made these accusations on social media while holding a rifle. Now, the weird part of this is they've apparently had their eyes on this guy, the authorities, whether it's Secret Service or some sort of Fed agency, some FBI agents, since August 23rd. That's when one video, which they believe was recorded at a Trump rally held at the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, California on August 23rd. They've known about this guy. And we're just hearing about the arrest now. Do you have to do more than one video threatening the life of a presidential candidate, now the president-elect? He was grabbed in Southern California on Monday. And his court-appointed legal representative is not speechifying. The charges include at least one count of making threats against the president-elect, 4 more counts of providing false statements during a firearm purchase. Oh, gee, he did what Hunter did. He lied on a background investigation check. How about that? This guy has something in common with Hunter Biden. Well, thank God the Secret Service, the FBI, whomever was involved in this, is doing their job. Now, let's hope they do their job when it comes to protecting all of the appointees for Donald Trump. We know about the threats to Pete Hegseth and at least a half dozen of the other folks that Donald Trump has nominated for key positions in his upcoming administration. I'm looking, do I have time to get to everything today? I think we will. We have to get to the stories about the trans issue in college sports. And this, I think, is a big stinking deal, especially when Donald Trump has made it a point that when he's in office, he's going to eliminate the madness around the transgender issue and protect the lives of women. competing in sports and making sure they compete against only women, and that girls in sports only compete against girls. This story's been bubbling pretty much all week, and it involves a volleyball team, Utah State, and they've been in the Mountain West Volleyball Championships, and they won their last battle, and Boise State advanced to the semifinals, where they're scheduled to play against San Jose State University. But Boise State has said they won't play the match because there is a man pretending to be a woman, my terms, not theirs. There's a man pretending to be a woman in the San Jose State University team. So they're going to sacrifice their season. And, of course, people like Riley Gaines have been all over this, talking about this. And there are a lot of people that say, Utah State and Boise State should really play for the title. Well, the courts are backing the trans individual. And it's got to be disturbing to all these young women who've competed, and many of them on scholarships, playing all throughout their college careers for the chance to win a national title. And now they're going to stand up for what is right and surrender the possibility to win a national title. I hope whoever is scheduled to play against San Jose State University does the same thing and says, no, we can't do this. And if you dare put the champion's trophy in the hands of San Jose State while there's a man on the team, it will forever, in my sports book, have an asterisk next to it. And this raises yet one more crazy question. And it truly is a crazy question. It's a question around what happens when these people who have changed their gender because they wanted to, they had gender dysphoria. What happens to these people when they decide to change back? Yes, it happened. And this may be the weirdest story around this whole trans thing I've read in forever. I'll share it with you just around the corner. It's Mike Opelka. I'm in for Chris Plant today. We're celebrating Thanksgiving and the arrival of the weekend. And I'll share this just weird. We need some consulting on this. Can we get Caitlyn Jenner to answer this question? I'll reach out during the break. It's Opelka in for Plant on the Chris Plant Show. Just like that, it's Friday, and Friday I'm in love. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on the Chris Plant Show. Breaking news, Tom Homan, yes, the new border czar, has announced he supports DEI, which in Tom Homan's world means deport every illegal. I like it. Can't wait for that guy to be in office. I'll get to my story about this crazy band story, but Bill in Scottsdale, Arizona, one of my favorite places in the world, not just because of all the great golf courses, Bill, but the great people. Welcome, Bill. What's on your mind?
Well, you were talking earlier about the circular firing squad that the Democrats are engaging in. But the one thing they're ignoring is that the last 4 years have proven they cannot govern at any level, state, local, federal. The last 4 months proved it.
That's true. And Bill, I was running the numbers on it. Kamala Harris's campaign lasted 107 days. She spent over $1.5 billion. That clocks in at $14 million a day spent to lose a presidential campaign. And that was the woman who was telling us she was going to fix our problem with the economy as well as our massive $36 trillion debt that's hanging over us like the sword of Damocles. Excellent point, Bill. Great clarity. Appreciate you. Have a great weekend, sir. Now this story, which just kind of, as I'm looking at all the trans madness, there was a story that popped once again on the Daily Mail about a rock and roll singer in a band that neither I or Michael Piercy have ever heard of. The band is called Life of Agony. Apparently, they've been around a while. I don't know them. Their lead singer is someone named Mina Caputo, who is 50 years old. Now, Mina Caputo was born Keith Caputo and is now claiming that his gender dysphoria has been cured. And Mina is going back to being Keith, which is kind of interesting. I wonder how far Keith took this when Keith became Mina. Did they see the other doctor who does the chop, etc.? But Mina saying, I have booked surgery to remove my fake breasts, and I will be lovingly living in my divine male self. I've cured my gender dysphoria. It took many years, a lot of walking through fire. Maybe that's the cure, walking through fire. And I rose above misunderstandings of my soul and my spirit. Caputo began identifying as Mina in 2008, publicly came out in 2011, so it's been like 13 years, and now has posted videos claiming all this. And we're told that if you misidentify someone, like if I see Caitlyn Jenner and I call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce Jenner, I'm said to be dead naming them. So is Mina returning, or is Mina now going to be the dead name and Keith returning from the dead? This has got to be so confusing. And it's got to be very confusing to the people in the finance. I just wonder if this changes how you have to file taxes, etc. It just proves what most right-thinking people know all along, that gender dysphoria is a real deal. It's between the ears. And it needs to be dealt with by professionals who deal with such problems between the ears. Let's hope we get clarity on that. And let's hope it starts with clarity in our military, which has been hampered, I believe, by the gender madness of the last 4 years. And some people say it goes all the way back to the Clinton administration. I'm not so sure about that. It was turbocharged the last 4 years. I thank you for being here today. Thank you, Jasmine. The lovely Jasmine has been on the phones. Michael Piercy has been holding up all of the madness that I've been offering. I'm looking to see if there are any other big stories that are breaking on my watch. No, I think there aren't. So we're going to say thank you for being here on this Black Friday, Johnny Walker Black Friday to some of us. And thank you for being a part of this radio station. I'll be back whenever Chris needs me. Until next time, it's Mike Opelka reminding you, testudo, my friends, testudo.